Welcome to AP Environmental Science. In this video, we are going to talk a little bit about how soil is made and how soil moves from one location to another. So there's two main processes that you need to know. The first one is weathering, and the second one is erosion. Now you do need to know the difference and that these two terms do not mean the same thing. So weathering is actually the process that creates new soil from rock, whereas erosion takes soil that's already been made and moves it to a new location. Now there's two main types of weathering. We have physical weathering and chemical weathering. Physical weathering is the mechanical breakdown of rocks and minerals. Now there's two types of physical weathering. We have abiotic causes such as wind and water and changes in temperature. An example of this would be frost wedging. So if you have a small depression in a rock and water accumulates in there, and then that water freezes. Now remember, water expands or increases in volume as it freezes. And that causes it to force that rock just apart a little bit, and it causes just a little more of a crack to form. Then that next time it thaws, the water will fill deeper into that crack, and then it'll freeze and it'll push it open just a little bit further, and it will continue this freeze-thaw process until the rock is split in half. Now, biotic causes of physical weathering would be from plant roots wedging their way into these cracks, and as that plant grows, that root gets bigger and it pushes out and forces that rock apart, or even burrowing animals scraping away at the rock itself. Chemical weathering is a little harder to conceptualize because it's a much slower process. This is the chemical release of minerals and nutrients from the rocks, and over time they slowly wear down. Now, the phosphorus cycle has a huge reserve of phosphorus found in rocks, and the only way to really access that phosphorus is through chemical weathering. So chemical weathering can be natural or anthropogenic or human-caused. Natural chemical weathering could be the acids that are released by lichens and other types of plants slowly break down the rock, and that's what you can see in the picture on the top. That is a lichen, the orange thing that's growing along the side of the rock. Or it can be anthropogenic. Now, an example of this would be the burning of fossil fuels releases sulfur and nitrogen oxides, which reacts with the water vapor in the air and creates sulfuric acid. Now, that sulfuric acid falls as acid rain, and acid rain actually wears down on all sorts of surfaces, including rocks. Erosion, on the other hand, this is taking already existing soil and moving it to another location. Now again, erosion can be caused by wind, water, ice, and other large physical environmental factors. And it's quite impressive how these natural factors such as water and wind can cause such huge changes in the landscape. So erosion caused by small particles blowing next to the solid rock actually caused all of the formations in Arches National Park, which is what that picture is on the bottom of the screen. The movement of water across the surface of the ground can pick up particles of soil and carry it with them, and that's this larger picture at the top of the screen that has caused significant erosion in a field due to water. Soil can develop in two ways. It can develop from top down or from bottom up. So soil development from the bottom, this is due to that unweathered or the parent rock slowly getting broken down to provide the raw materials for making the soil. From above, soil is created as organic material from dead plants and lichens and animals starts to decompose, and it contributes and it mixes in with that raw parent material. So a mature soil has a whole bunch of organic material and nutrients. However, very old soils in places that historically have had a lot of productivity tend to be actually pretty nutrient poor because a lot of those nutrients have already been removed and brought up to the plant layer. You can also see better defined soil horizons in older soil compared to younger soil. And we'll talk a little bit about those soil horizons. Soil horizons are based off of their composition and the amount of organic material. Now this diagram that's on here on the right, you are going to need to know that and know the order of the layers. Now it's not really all that hard to remember because at the top we have O for organic, and if you think about it, organic material is obviously going to be near the surface. And then it goes ABC, so from the top down, but there's this E thrown in the middle, and the E layer is not there in all soils, and we'll talk about that. And then of course at the bottom, that's our rock. So it's the R layer is the rock at the bottom. So the O layer, which is found near the top, is our organic horizon. This is where you're going to find that decomposed organic material, and it's sometimes called humus. Not the food hummus, but it's humus. Now, this humus layer or organic layer is more pronounced in forests, and that's because you have more leaf litter and more decomposing organic matter that's contributing to the buildup of the organic layer. The next layer down would be the A horizon. The A horizon is also considered your topsoil. This is where that organic material is mixed in with the mineral material. And this is usually a nice dark and rich layer. This layer is where most of the soil biological activity is taking place, and you do need to know that. The next one down would be the E horizon, or the alluviated horizon. Now, this is not found in all soils, and it's not easy to identify in all soils where it is present. And what's happening here is there's some leaching of the minerals from the top layers down towards the bottom layers. So this is something that's really kind of difficult to see often. Now in the picture that I put all the way on the right of the screen, you can see that white band where the soil or where the nutrients have been kind of leached and accumulating. Below the topsoil, we have the subsoil, and this is the B horizon. This is also called the zone of accumulation. So this is where those minerals and those nutrients are accumulating within the soil because they're leaching down from the top and accumulating in the B horizon. Below that, we have the C horizon. Now the C horizon, this is the least weathered. This is just kind of chunks of that parent material with a little bit of that subsoil kind of mixed together. It's a really hard layer to define. On this diagram, you can see that it's not a distinct change between the B and the C. It's kind of this blend. And of course the bottom, and this isn't typically considered a horizon, this is really just the parent rock. This is the bottom of that soil column. Now remember, not all soil profiles are going to look the same. If you take a soil sample out behind school and then you take a soil sample back at your home, you're going to notice that that column is probably going to be different. And this really makes sense, because the soil really determines what kind of things can grow in a particular location. So on this diagram, places that are more of a wetland type location, they have a very thick A horizon, and their B horizon has a whole lot of saturated water in there, and it's really kind of holding a lot of moisture. Whereas if you go up towards an upland forest, you have a really thin A horizon, you have a distinct E horizon, and your C horizon's pretty low down and is pretty well broken up. So it really depends on the location and the environment for what your soil horizons are going to be. So your soil is not just a dead substance. Your soil is actually really alive and provides a lot of services to the ecosystem and society as a whole. The first one is providing a substance or substrate for plant growth. So pretty straightforward. Second one, it's involved in cycling of nutrients, which makes sense. We talked a little bit about the phosphorus cycle earlier in this slide set. And of course, soil provides a huge habitat resource for a whole bunch of microorganisms that call the soil their home. Soil provides an engineering medium that's used by humans to build a lot of our structures. And soil provides ecosystem services in the form of filtering out and storing water. So water moves through the soil from the surface and trickles down into the aquifers. And in that process of moving through the soil removes a lot of the toxins and the impurities from the soil. So it filters out the water. The water also accumulates in that aquifer and is actually stored there as a resource for humans and other organisms to use. Now, in summary, you should be able to describe the characteristics involved in the formation of soil. Make sure you understand the difference between weathering and erosion, and the difference between physical and chemical weathering, along with the main characteristics of each of the soil horizons. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I hope that as you watch this video, you were able to learn something.